Good morning, YouTube. I'm going to do a little review today on the CRF300L here. So I'll find a little appropriate spot to pull over, and we'll talk about it. Give you an idea of how Lucy here is doing. Okay, so Lucy here has had not too many miles, but or kilometers I should say, but 13,000, and certainly that gives me enough to go on to tell you, do I like this bike? Has it been good for me? Yeah, it has. Do I like it? Yeah, I do. Yep. As many of you know, I had the CRF300L, which I purchased in 2013. And I put 62,000, a little more than that, kilometers on it. And it was running tip-top when I sold it. I mean, there was no decline in performance. I did a leak down test on that engine at, I think it was 40,000, and it was still within stock specs. So can't argue with that, right? And this is the same engine, except it's stroked, right? So maybe a little more stress on this one, I don't know. But I suspect it'll do just as well. Some of the annoying things about this one, when I first got it, and I remember the suspension on the CRF300L, and I mean, yeah, it was a little dorky, but it was acceptable. It was acceptable. I could get away with it. You know, I could put the preload on the shock up to max, and it was okay. But with this one, I swear, the shock is worse stock. I swear they got a lower spec shock, because the moment I got on this, I mean, it was very different, and the rear end sagged down. I felt like I was riding a chopper, you know. So I didn't like that, and that caused some rather terrible handling, in my opinion. I kind of like, you know, taking some twisty roads rather quickly. And that was not well suited to that. In fact, it was downright dangerous. When you round one corner, you haven't quite recovered from that bend before you're entering the next one, and it's still wallowing away. So not good. So that was one complaint. The other complaint was what a lot of people complain about, which is the rattle in the engine. Everyone says it's a rattle at 5K RPM, but not for me. It was pretty well everywhere, just because I'm special. Yeah, and it was really noisy. Now, I would have to say that has quieted down substantially. I mean, it was bad, you know, like it was like knocking and clacking, you know, even at high RPM. And it kind of worried me. I took it to Honda, and, you know, he took it for a ride. He says, yeah, it's noisy, but I don't know. I think it's normal. Could be piston slap. Turns out, what's his name? I forget his name. But anyway, the guy that runs 550 Performance, he says it's piston slap. And he has his latest tunes adjusting the ignition timing to create a different, well, you know what I'm getting at, peak power on the spark, and as it compresses, it puts peak power at a different place in the stroke of the piston, and it eliminates the slap. So I don't know how true that is, but anyway, over time, mine has quieted down. Now, it could be because of some of the things I've done to it, which I'll get into, but I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm happy to say that yes, it's quieted down to acceptable levels. So those are I think, the only two things that I didn't like about the bike. And I have corrected both those things, so yeah, nothing not to like now. Um, what do I like about this bike? And again, I'll reference it to the 250L because there was a lot of changes, right? So one of the things I like is that it's roomier in the geometry. When you're sitting, I've got more room for my arms to go forward without feeling cramped. So, it has a different frame, and I'm sure that they thought about that, making it a little bit better for, people that aren't 5'5" and 130 pounds. I'm 5'11". I used to be 6 feet, but I'm old now. What can I say? And I weigh about 170. It varies, but in around there, 170. Yeah, so I like that. The power, it's got enough power for me. That said, I have the 550 Performance stock improved ECU, and that gave it a little bit more pep. And of course, I did my usual thing. I opened up the air box, removed the snorkel, made the inlet larger. Sorry about the traffic here. I didn't expect the road to be that busy. Yeah, so I opened up the air box and have the 550 stock improved ECU, and I have a K&N filter, and I opened up the stock muffler. I have a video on that, so you can check that out. Basically, the stock muffler is, two chambers, kind of divided in half, and my modification made it so that quite a bit of the air, the gases from the first chamber, don't have to be baffled around halfway across the globe before they make it out into the last chamber. And so a lot of the gases will go directly from the first chamber, which is right from the catalytic converter, and out the spark arrestor. So that improved the intake and it improved the exhaust. And with the extra fueling, with the new ECU, yeah, it all performs quite well. It is definitely a little peppier than stock, and for me, it has enough power. I mean, I wouldn't say no to more, but I'm not going to go to any more extent to modify it because it's satisfying me, and that's all that counts. To go with that, I have a G2 Ergonomics quick turn competition throttle. So it's a little shorter throw, and that makes the bike a little more responsive on the throttle with less effort. I like that. I really do. So, have I had any glitches, any problems with it? No, not really. The brakes are adequate. They're not anything to write home about, but it's a dual sport. And to my mind, you don't want real grabby brakes on a dual sport because when you're on dirt, you want gentle brakes, right? So I understand why they do that. I hear a lot of people complaining about the brakes, but I think that that's all there is to it, It's intentional. I still have the stock gearing, and that's another thing I can say about this bike. The 300L compared to the 250L again, the 300L has much better gearing. Yeah, it's the same final drive, 1440, but yeah, the internal gearing, the transmission, it's set up much nicer. First gear, yeah, it's pretty short, pretty low, but that's what you want for, some occasions when you're off-road and you're in a real tricky, steep section or whatever. And the other gears, from 2 to 5, they're somewhat short-spaced compared, and then 6 being more like an overdrive, and I think it's ideal. Would I change the gearing on the final drive? I'm not sure whether I would or not, but if I did, I would only do a 42 tooth rear sprocket. So 1442, it actually would be a good combination. You don't lose too much on the highway, very little, but gives you just a little extra torque and zippiness. Because you don't need much extra on this. Like I say, the gearing they really did a good job. Fuel economy, yeah, it's great. It's pretty much like the 250L. A little bit more power, but it's still economical. And even with the 550 Performance ECU, it is economical still. It didn't change much, if anything. I think I get around 76 miles per gallon. That's miles per imperial gallon. Just so you know. I'm not sure if there's anything else to say about the bike. Yeah, I just like it. It's really nice. It handles beautifully with what I've done, and I should get into that. I fixed the rear suspension with a K-Tech R1 shock. I'm sure you know what that is. You can probably see it in there. And that is an excellent upgrade. It's a lovely shock. I think it's perfect for this bike. So once you adjust the preload to your weight to get your sag correct, and then you can adjust the rebound damping. And yeah, with all that said, it handles lovely. Raises the back end a little bit, of course, but that's a good thing. And it handles good, like I say. To correct the front. Now, the front really didn't need correcting, and I was tempted to leave it stock, and in hindsight, maybe I should have. I put the Racetech fork spring kit in there. Did it improve it? Yes, it did, but marginally, and at a cost, and the cost was that you lose maybe a couple inches of suspension travel that otherwise you could use when you push it hard. Now, when you push it hard, I mean really hard, harder than you should. I can't get it anywhere near bottom. The last 2 inches I cannot use. So I think Racetech kind of screwed up on that one. To be honest, I wrote them a letter about it, and they were attentive enough not to respond. They just couldn't care less, I guess. Anyway, that's spilt milk. It handles really good now, though, right? So when I take it on some fast twisties, yeah, it's good. For this bike, it's good. And for the price, I think it's fabulous. I mean, I didn't mean to go into the modifications too much here. I already did a video on that. You can check it out. I did a video on that about a month ago, something like that. So it's a recent video. And you can look at that to see whatever I've done to it. But I've told you the main things here. Pair system I've left intact. I did block it off once in an attempt to stop some of the engine rattle, and it did. It stopped some of that. But I reconnected it again, so it's operating now. And yeah, I'm satisfied with the engine noise now, so it's okay. So I would say that for the price, oh my goodness. I mean, for what you pay for this, you're getting a lot of bike when you take care of a few things that need to be taken care of, right? And the main thing is the suspension. You do that, and I don't know, just depends on the route you go. Maybe you're going to spend $800. I'm talking Canadian. Canadian money, that is. Not the Canadian language. That's almost the same as the American language. Yeah, so $800, and over the base price of the bike, yeah, you get a lot for your money. So I'm a fan, a big fan. I'm a fan of Lucy. So I think that's it. You can see that I put on aftermarket levers, and to me that's a must to get the adjustability, on the grab point for your clutch. And of course, some Zeta bend handguards. That's also, I think, a must. And as you can see, I have the Acerbis or Acerbis skid plate. Again, a must. I've got aftermarket pegs. That's not a must. It was a preference. They're a little bit beefier, a little bit wider. Tail tidy, stuff like that. As you can see, I've got a different seat cover. I like this one. It's SKDA. It suits the look and is very, very grippy. It suits the look I wanted for the bike. Remove the graphics and stuff, as you can see. Oh, I could mention one other thing. As you can see, the frame is down to the metal there, but that happened in the first 2 weeks. It was much worse, and then I sprayed it. I have a spray that's matches it pretty well. And then, of course, it keeps happening. So I put some tape, some really heavy-duty clear tape, but I guess I went through the tape as well. It was the same on the 250, and what I did was once a year I would just spray it, mask off a little bit and give it a little touch-up. It's no big deal. I see people putting on these guards and everything, and then water and crap gets behind the guard, and you're going to take the guard off and clean it, otherwise your frame is going to probably rust back there. I mean, who knows? Yeah. I think a lot of people fret about little things, and they get all uptight about it. I try not to. So, yeah, the stock exhaust, put it in neutral here. Now you probably won't hear it too well on the video. I don't know. Will you? Do you? That's my modified. Modified stock exhaust. Probably sounds crappy on the video. Sounds pretty good though in real life. It's not too loud. It's, on my 250 I had a Yoshimura RS4 exhaust, full system, and it was a love-hate relationship. I mean, sometimes I did not like the loudness of it. It was so freaking annoying. Yeah. So I like this. This is perfect for me. Perfect for me. Okay, folks. I think Lucy and I are going to head off into the sunset. Well, maybe not sunset, because I don't think we'll have one today. But we're going to do a bit of riding. Oh, and I forgot to mention that one of the things I really like about the bike, And again, as compared to the CRF300L, is the increase in torque. I mean, you really notice the extra power in this one, especially in the form of torque. And that is so useful. So, good job Honda on that one. Yeah, I almost forgot that. And that's really one of the key things that is different about this bike that is welcome. Anyway, you know what? I think I'm going to say goodbye. So, if you've got a CRF300L and you got some things you like about it, what you don't like, put it in the comments. I want to know. And if you don't have one and you're thinking of getting one or trying to decide between this bike and another bike, if I haven't answered any of your concerns or questions, put it in the comments and I'd be happy to answer. So you guys, you take care, you ride safe, you have fun, and I will catch you on another one.